I gotta go find. Okay. Yeah, he just needed ambient noise. Because he's got dead air right now. He's good.
Take mine.
Okay, good afternoon. If I could have your attention, the way we do in schools, we hold up the hand and get everybody quiet. So good afternoon, and welcome to lunchtime. Lunchtime is an educational experience too. And to lead us in lunch, we have invited one of the best-known restaurateurs in the country, Alice Waters. If you've never had the pleasure and privilege of eating at Chez Panisse in Berkeley, I suggest you book your reservation in advance when you plan to go, and make sure you get not only a nutritious meal, but one of the most delicious meals you'll ever eat. Alice has been not just running great restaurants. She has been a champion and a leader and an advocate for changing the way children relate to food. And she's been doing this in Berkeley, among other places, and we're going to learn about that very, very important work. So, Alice, thank you so much for joining us today and for helping to nourish us this afternoon.
Well, it's really an incredible pleasure to be here. You have no idea. You have no idea. Now, unfortunately, we put food on the table and everybody was hungry, so you've already started eating before you could contemplate your placemat. Because your placemat is terribly important for this day. Because we're pretending you're all in 7th grade, okay? You're in 7th grade and you're studying the Silk Road in India. And so we're having this class as part of your academic minutes. So instead of having lunch in a cafeteria free-for-all, we are seating you at a table because we know that most of you in this room, 85% of you in this room, don't have one meal with your family. You eat on the run, 20% of you eat in your cars. And it's very sad what's happened. We've lost that moment in the day to learn about human values. So that's what we're trying to do, is to take that lunch hour. It's the only door that's really open in the school system. And it's because of the health of this nation. Everyone is concerned about what our children are eating. And so we at the Edible Schoolyard Project, or I should say, I at the Edible Schoolyard Project, I'm a Montessori teacher. I learned Montessori before I opened Chez Panisse 46 years ago. And I've used Montessori pedagogy for even working in the kitchens of Chez Panisse. I'm trying to win people over people in the dining room, get them to taste something that's delicious that they may never have tasted before. I'm trying to have everyone learn by doing, that when you do it, when you peel the little tangerine in the fruit bowl at the dessert at Chez Panisse, you're participating in this. So I want them to learn by doing. I also believe in education of the senses. We've been so shut down by a fast food culture that we don't smell, we don't taste, we don't really listen, we don't touch, we don't really know about the world through our senses. Those are the pathways into our minds. And of course, food is the best way to open them up. It does everything. So I'm using that very thing to engage kids. And ultimately, she was a holistic thinker. She was a doctor, and she was most successful in the slums of Naples and in India. And because of the poverty and hunger, where we are sensorially deprived in many of those ways, and many of them because of poverty and hunger. So this is an idea to feed every single child a free and sustainable school lunch. Every day, breakfast, lunch, and an afternoon snack. Every single child. The great thing about it is that we have an opportunity at the same time we're feeding our children. We can take care of the farmers who are taking care of the land for the future of this planet. And so we can make it a real connection like Chez Panisse has done all these years, go directly to the farmers, support them, give them the money, and it's school-supported agriculture. So that's the master plan. And we're going to, Kyle, who is the director of the Edible Schoolyard Project in Berkeley, and I are going to give you instructions because you're all going to participate in the service of this meal. Okay? And we're going to, I hope, show you that it's not impossible. In fact, it's rather easy to feed all of you in a very short time. So we're going to time you too. Okay? So, Kyle.
Hi. I think you can do it in less than 5 minutes. We have 280 people in this room, and Alice has provided the vision. It's my job to organize you. So here's what we're going to do. You're all sitting at a table, and everyone is going to have a job. I'm going to give 4 people running jobs and 3 people setting the table jobs, okay? So as I call, okay, wait, one other thing. Teachers are sometimes the worst at listening to instructions. So don't move until I've given all the instructions and say go. Okay, are we on the same page? Okay. So I need one person to volunteer as the person to get the rice. So who's going to get the rice at each table? Okay, the rice is in the back corner over there. I need another runner to go and get the curry. So make sure you know who at your table is running for the curry. Over there in the far right corner, we have salad over here, so we need a salad person. Okay? One more runner is going to go to the back corner there and get greens. Okay. So when I say go, wait. See what I mean? So when I say go, you're going to go very quickly but calmly to your area. And then if you are not a runner, you're going to make sure that everyone has a plate and a napkin and a glass filled with water and the silverware. And I assure you that we can feed 300 people in less than 5 minutes. One of the largest barriers to feeding kids is time, but we're going to do it. Are you ready? Go. Okay, everybody. So if you haven't started to eat, please do so. I just want to let you know that you served each other in 2 minutes and 32 seconds.
on? Okay, as soon as you turn it on. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Tell me, good afternoon. You know what it means? It means it's shh. So I hope you're enjoying lunch. Let's give it for lunch. Let's give a hand for lunch. A very quick lunch story. I'm in my office in New York, and I get contacted by a principal, new principal, just graduated from the Leadership Academy in New York City, and she said she wants to talk to me. So we set up a meeting, and she says, I have a real problem at my school. There's a food fight every day at lunch. Kids are literally throwing food at each other. I have a teacher at every table, and they're still throwing the food. I don't know what to do. So my first question is, why are you coming to me? And she says, well, I'm afraid to tell my superintendent because I just got hired, and they'll say, if I can't even run the lunchroom, I can be a principal. So she said, I thought maybe you could help me. I said, well, my first question is, do your kids eat prison style or family style? Right. She said, what do you mean prison style? I said, well, in prisons, you line up, you get your food, and then you fight for a spot at the table. Right. She said, well, isn't that way all schools do it? I said, most schools. I said, not all. To a school that's actually in your neighborhood where they eat family style. Right? And I take her to a school in Brownsville, neighborhood where I grew up part of my life, and lo and behold, they eat like we did. Right? And you know what? It makes a huge difference. Now, they didn't get the quality of lunch that we got. It was still the regular lunch, but even that difference had an impact. You can see the work in Berkeley at Martin Luther King Middle School, at the Edible Schoolyard, which shows you where it could go, okay? Where lunch could go, where nutrition could go. And after, we're going to invite Alice up for some conversations about nutrition.
We have been living in a fast food culture for the last 50 years. We are really up against a whole institutional thinking that is preventing us from nourishing our children.
It's crucial that we change our children's relationship to food. We have a broken food system, and we have to change that.
I believe deeply that we show respect for our students' minds and bodies through the food that we serve them. As a school district, we have the incredible opportunity to give them really great, delicious food that not only nourishes their bodies, but also their minds.
I want a free, organic, sustainable school lunch for every student in this country. We can do this not only in the state of California, but we could do it throughout the country. We could do it throughout the world. Edible education is an idea to integrate food into an academic curriculum.
Clearly, having a kitchen classroom and a garden in the school is an incredible asset for everybody. But if you do not have your school lunch on board, there's a huge disconnect for students.
We want to improve our school lunch program so that there's a connection between the nutrition education program and the actual food that kids are eating on a daily basis.
I'm hoping to teach school lunch as an academic subject.
When you think about lunch as an academic subject, it's giving it credibility. It's not time out of your school day where you're turned off your brain and you're not learning. It should be something that they value as part of their school day as well.
I think the best way to teach people about this idea is to actually serve them a free school lunch. Welcome to school lunch as an academic subject. I think it's an idea whose time has come. This is a vision of what could be.
I like cooking food and preparing food. It makes me happy inside. I like the different colors in the meals. The salad was green, The chickpeas were orange, and I just like seeing different colors.
It just tasted good. Normally, school lunches are like cold or just not fresh. You can tell they're processed.
These kids are really hungry for the ideas of cooking and of setting a table, of tasting something.
I think hunger exists in many different ways within our school community. There are the students who have no food in the fridge at home, so they rely on us 100% for all the nutrients that they're going to receive throughout the day. But then we also have students who are consuming empty calories throughout the day. I can't tell you how many students I've talked to who subsist on water or Gatorade or even just 6 slices of white bread. It's not just concentrated in certain schools and certain neighborhoods. Hunger exists all throughout our district. And I personally don't believe that any kid should have to know if they have money or don't have money. You know, like that shouldn't be a part of their school day. That shouldn't qualify them for food or not qualify for them for food.
Having a program where there's free, organic, sustainable lunches to our students is certainly within the realm of possibility.
So if we fully believe that hungry students have a hard time learning, then I don't understand how we couldn't invest in a program that allows our students to be nourished and thrive.
I'm imagining that this project could be school-supported agriculture, where a whole school could support any number of farmers or ranchers or fishermen. And in that way, it assures these precious farmers an income.
With intention, you can feed children the best food on earth within school budget and far exceeding anything you'd ever imagine in terms of the return on what happens for children when their minds and bodies are nourished.
In order to make school lunch an academic subject, it's really going to take the teachers, the superintendents of schools, the mayors of cities, the governors of states, and ultimately the voices of children, their belief in this. We must change school lunch.
Bring you Alice Waters once again. So, Alice, thank you for lunch.
Of course, I cooked it all myself. Didn't you notice that? I did that in the hour before I came.
So,
Now, we're grateful to all of those who cooked with the
yes,
team from
thank
UCLA.
you to those who
They were
cooked.
really great, really great.
Give thanks. So when I watched this, and then you know, I've had a chance to actually visit the Edible Schoolyard. You were gracious enough to take me there, see it in action, and I actually see kids preparing meals too, which that wasn't captured, I don't think, in the video. First thing I thought of, they're using knives. These are middle school kids with knives. All that comes to mind are all the obstacles that get in the way, liability issues, contracts with other vendors that seem to make this impossible. Why do you think this is even possible?
Because we broke the rules that were not right, and we taught the students how to be safe with the equipment that they use. And we did it better than anybody would imagine. It's what we did at Chez Panisse. We opened the door between the dining room and the kitchen. And normally, you're not supposed to do that because food could be contaminated by the people who come into the restaurant somehow. But we had the kitchen so clean that nobody could say anything about that. We were so careful about it. And I think if we make models of the right way, it shines forth and people understand it. I mean, they said we had to paint all kitchens white so they can be clean. But that's not really true. They have to be light-colored, of course, but they don't have to be white. They could be a warm yellow, which would make people happy who worked in that kitchen. They don't have to be all stainless steel. They have to be cleanable, and you have to clean them. But it's a whole different culture of food. But it's, again, I don't want to lose the academic purpose behind all of this. That even in the cooking lessons, it's a conversation that you're having that's about the subject you're studying. And it is all intentional, and it meets the standards of the California
FDA
education, of the education. So we have all the curriculum on our website, which now has 5,500 schools that are doing this across the country, around the world, offering their best practices from K to 12, even in college.
So one of the things you said in the film is that we've got to get the politicians, the governors, the state legislature involved. We actually have a former U.S. Senator, Barbara Boxer, with us today. Unfortunately, I said former U.S. Senator. I think that if we could get them to visit and see it, they might believe it. But how do we do that? Because I couldn't even, I mean, many of the people I wanted to come today work in Los Angeles, couldn't even get them here to eat this lovely lunch. And so have you thought about that? How do we get to those policymakers?
I think well, I don't hate to use the word seduce them. But I think we have to really use our powers of persuasion in a whole different way. Let's invite them to a park to meet. Let's invite them to an unlikely place, because we want to talk about a very important idea, and they can't come. You don't want to invite them into a place where they know. And every time I meet with anybody, I bring food with me, and I put it right down in the center of the table. I used to, I still do have what I call quiche diplomacy. I take the best Ojai quiche tangerines, and I send them to all the politicians in Washington and elsewhere that need to be persuaded of one thing and another. And they pay attention. It's cold there, and they get a box of these irresistible fruits. And we have to use food as a way of gathering people. And for school teachers, can you imagine how little they make and how important their jobs are? And wouldn't they like to be invited for a lunch or dinner? And at the beginning of the Edible Schoolyard, I invited the entire math department to just come have lunch and have their meeting there, which they did for a couple of years, and then they got very spoiled. Even after they believed in everything, they wanted to eat there every week. And but it's really, food is about offering. It's about offering. I hesitate to say love, but it really is that when you cook something and you give it to someone else, they respond to that, especially when it tastes good. And we all need to learn how to cook again. And so this is a way we can, as a nation, learn how to cook again, is to engage our children in this very meaningful and important way.
So I'd like to invite people up if you have a question for Alice. There are mics on either side, brief questions. I want to pose one more question, and we talked about this earlier. We are in a society, and increasingly this is a global issue, that's addicted to bad food. Right? I remember seeing a clip about a school in England. Ken Robinson left, but he's English, where they had tried They had tried to impose healthy food on a school, and parents were literally sneaking soda and chips through the fence to give to their kids. They thought it was their right to have junk food. So my point is that...
This was Jamie Oliver.
Right. Sometimes people don't know or don't want what's good for them. Isn't it a right to have bad food and bad nutrition? Why are we trying to impose this elitist notion of organic food on our children?
Well, I think that food needs to come with education. It's really, really important. You can't do what Jamie was doing, was training the kitchen staff and then putting the food on the table. And the kids, it didn't look like the food that they were eating at home, and they didn't want to eat it. But we engage the kids and empower them to cook it and choose things for themselves. And when that happens, they all want to eat it. And I say the one truth of the Edible Schoolyard Project is if they grow it and they cook it, they all eat it. 95% eat it if they only cook it or they only grow it. But that's kind of amazing. It's 6 weeks to kale.
Okay. Fortunately, I like kale. So, Claudio Sanchez, you get the first question.
If you look at the 1928 school curriculum of the state of Virginia, there are parts of that curriculum where gardening is a requirement, and children essentially were doing what we saw. Why is it that we try and keep reinventing things that used to work? Because what you're doing, as fabulous as it is, has been tried before. What makes you think it's going to take root now? No pun intended.
Well, it's the most important question, and I really believe that that we have been really the. What I like to say, we live in a fast food culture, and they are determined to educate us from very young to want the food that they produce. This is a concentrated effort that they're making, and they have had a huge success because we didn't have strong, deep roots in either agriculture for taste or gastronomy. And so when the fast food industry came and said, look, I got something that's faster and cheaper and easier, we went for it. And we didn't know, like we didn't know about cigarettes, we didn't know that it was addictive. We didn't know that. And we just lost our human values. I mean, we just gave up the time that we used to spend eating together. And now it's something so serious. You know, that every time we eat fast food, we eat the values. Time is money. More is better. Advertising confers value. Cooking is drudgery. Farming is drudgery. You know, cheapness. Don't forget, I mean, when something is cheap, I always figure that somebody's missing, is losing out someplace. And it's most often the farmer. So we have to really learn in school that the things that are important take time, like growing food, like falling in love. I mean, really, that we have to learn how to value, and the kids learn very quickly how to value sitting at the table. They miss that. So it's, I think the way that we're going to bring it home is by educating the next generation. And we have an enormous possibility right now to do that. And come together as a group from all sides. I mean, this is addressing not only hunger and nutrition, it's addressing global warming, climate change, buying from the farmers that are locally near you, who have good farming practices. I mean, it's amazing what could happen. We could change farming overnight in this country. But it's also predisposing kids to be engaged in learning. You know, it's focusing them, it's calming them down. I loved this lunch that actually in a room with this many people, you could talk across the table and around the table. And the same thing happens at the Edible Schoolyard. I'll go in there. I think they're only doing it for me. But in fact, they do it every day. It's just, they treat each other differently, and it's quite remarkable.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. We have time for a couple more questions.
Thank you for this wonderful lunch, first of all. I am in the Impact program, which is part of UCLA's teacher education program. And something that we've been talking about recently is how when you come into a community that's not yours with the goal of empowering that community, it's really important to first make bonds and talk to the community members to discover what they need and what their goals and values are before you come in with your ideas. So I was just wondering how Edible Schoolyards does that, not only in the school communities that they're in, but beyond the school communities.
That's a really good question. I mean, again, when we ever do, outreach, it's always bringing an offering for the table, always that. But we do a parents' night where we invite the parents into the schools and the kids cook for the parents, and we take care of the younger siblings so that they can all connect together there. But it's our online website that is trying to connect up everybody in communities that's involved with gardening or in cooking or in building community relationships. But I've always thought that the best way to build community is to have something that you really need from each other and you have a bond. I want to go and buy bread from Acme Bread Company because he's doing the right thing and I'm grateful, and we bond over that interaction that we have with each other. And so that's not a long right answer, but it's the beginnings.
Thank you. Yes, next.
Hi, my name is Cicely Binger, and I'm a teacher in Inglewood School District. And I've been doing cooking with my students for about 9 years now because of the Champions for Change program that give us like a fruit or vegetable of the month. And I teach kindergarten. They use plastic knives, and they love it. My specific question is about the therapeutic side of cooking, because that's what I've witnessed over the years. Is some of my toughest kids that I've had, when they get that cutting board and they get those materials, they become so softened and focused, and the trauma sort of melts away. So I'm just curious about, has that informed what you do at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, my favorite piece of equipment, if you say, in the kitchen is the mortar and the pestle. And we have lots of those at the Edible Schoolyard. But just pounding garlic and basil to make a pesto, and you're doing it over and other. I mean, it's really therapeutic for me. I even think washing lettuce and drying it, it's like a rhythm. I mean, we're going back to the beginnings of civilization, really. We're talking about things that we've always done, taking care of the land because that's where our food came from, celebrating the harvest, eating with family and friends. This is not foreign. It's only been foreign in the last 50, 60 years, truly. And it's something that really, but I won't get into that. No.
I cook myself, so I know what you're talking about.
No, it's just, for me, it's a huge pleasure. And sometimes when I talk about it, it just sounds almost just frivolous. This is something, going to the farmer's market and how much I love it. It just sounds extreme or just my own idiosyncratic thing, but it is not. I just see how many people get connected with the people there and with the people who sell things, and you're so grateful. I mean, it's that connection with the people who produce your food that is so meaningful, really. I love those farmers. Any farmers in the room?
Gardener.
Gardening, okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Great.
I think, is this the last one? Last question.
Last question. Well, I'm honored. Thank you, Alice. Peter Lowndes is my name, and
Hello.
I'm a New Yorker by birth, but I've been out here 35 years, and I just wanted to give you a report from Koreatown. I know in the north, that people from your town up there rarely come down here because they think we're barbarians and it's strange, but good things are happening. 35 years ago, I was hard-pressed to find, I was, going to Zabar's in New York and used to 10, 15 different kinds of bread.
Zabar's.
Hey, let's hear it for Zabar's. All right. But here I had to really go someplace to get a nice loaf of pumpernickel. Now there are, I think in Koreatown, 15 or 16 ethnicities. So what I'm here to do is just to acknowledge immigration, whether documented or undocumented or whatever we want to call it. The world has come to Los Angeles in the last 35 years. And there are, if you would go tonight to Alexandria and 6th Street in Koreatown, you would see something that looks a little like Paris, because the kids are out on the street, everybody's eating wonderful food, everybody's enjoying themselves. And what I see in this wonderful film of your wonderful projects, and I've taught at schools that had gardens, is that same joy, that same excitement. So there's so much, and I love the emotional side of cooking, and you bring that so well to us. I mean, we're here, I could spend the rest of the day here. I clean tables, Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Peter.
Thank you very much.
Well, Alice, I'm not sure if you have any final words. I know that you're sowing seeds of good ideas. That was the whole idea of this conference, is to try to get people to rethink the way we're approaching educating kids. If we can change lunch, that's a high leverage strategy, right, for changing the way schools operate. And so any final words just about this work?
I think that the door that's open is the cafeteria door into public education, and for many, many reasons. And I think we have to go in that door and bring in the values into that door. And I know that that can happen. It really can happen. It's the easiest way in, and it's a necessity, an urgency to feed all children, to end childhood poverty in this country. End it by feeding children in school nutritious food. But it's so much bigger than that. And I really think that everybody's pedagogical ideas can be incorporated, because this, in a way, I was talking about how high schools could have student-run cafeterias. And maybe they design for an art class the cafeteria, what's on the walls, how to do that. Maybe they do the outreach to all the farms. They find out about how people are growing the food. Maybe they survey students as part of statistics. They do their writing classes, talking about, the connections of food and agriculture. It's endless, right? Poetry about about food. Not difficult to do, but it's a way of integrating public education, and so I'm just hoping that with the leadership of everybody in this room, that we can put together a really compelling message to the voters in California. I know we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you. Thank you. Careful. So next step, we're going to head back to the place we were this morning to hear Sir Ken Robinson. Please join us.